Welcome to the Lost Signals Reviews, the American Film Institute's Top 100, where we critique the supposed 100 greatest American movies of all time. Join us as we decide if they're worthy of the Mott's Top 100.
Hello, and welcome back to Lost Signals discusses and reviews the AFI Top 100. And tonight, we are going to the skies with our sci-fi-ish theme that we've been doing for a while. And we're going to do E.T., the Extra-Terrestrial, which is number 24 on the AFI list. I am your host, Scott Thurlow, here with my fellow kids on bikes, Steve Ramosi.
Don't touch my finger.
Jonathan Ian Manzer.
Buy Coke.
Yes, and Chris Morgan.
Hey.
And I believe you have the logline prepared for this one.
Stranger Things, Season 0, E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial.
Indeed. And Chris, why don't you kick us off with the plot, please?
Okay. It is about an alien group of alien horticulturists who land on the planet, and they're scared away by government bad guys. And this kid Elliot finds the...
Who, by the way, seemed like just your standard run-of-the-mill Hicks until the end of the movie when you put it together.
Well,
they were
you get
alien
to see,
hunters.
Well, you get to see Peter Coyote's crotch and keychain for
that's his entire character.
I was like, this is a very focused crotch shot. I hope this comes back later, and it does pay off. So,
if you say so. Yeah. All right. Never mind. Anyway, point is, the kid Elliot meets E.T. and hijinks ensue. He brings his siblings into it. E.T. decides he wants to phone home. He and Elliot become psychically linked. Peter Coyote with his keychain and the rest of the government goons show up. And you think E.T.'s going to die, and he doesn't die, and then kids on bikes go, and then there's the alien there, and E.T. go home. So that's kind of it.
So
that is what happens. Go
so I really love this movie, and maybe it has something to do with nostalgia. Maybe it has something I still think it's a really well done movie. I hadn't seen it in years, but there are certain things that, upon rewatching, after a 15-year interim, where I just want to ask a couple questions. We'll see what you guys think. Could E.T. have broken that bond at any time, or did he basically have to die to break the bond with Elliot? Because if he could have broken it at any time, isn't he kind of a dick?
I was going to say, are you asking if Elliot...
for bringing a child to the brink of death.
Are you saying, is Elliot a tool? Is he under alien mind control?
A tool of E.T.? Yeah, I mean, he obviously is.
Let me jump in. So, I think it's the nature of E.T.'s species, right? They're all connected. It seems like he's got that heart, glowing heart thing. So he can't help it. It's like an instinct. He imprints, if you will, upon a friend, and then they're linked, inextricably. He can't break it. And then the reason he's dying is because I gathered that he was on Earth and too far away from his other family. Right. So that's, I guess, how I answer it.
I ask you a question to answer your question. Are you implanting human motivations on a creature that is not human?
A creature that showed very clear indications that he had human emotions, by the way. Or human-like emotions, at least. Yeah. He had a very... And he even vocally talked about his emotions. So it was pretty clear that he loved, loved Elliot and whatever. Didn't want him to die, all this stuff. So I'm like, you are killing him. And I guess maybe it took E.T. almost dying to break that connection. But I was a little... I was like, why didn't they die together? Anyway.
You can't kill a kid in 1982.
It's a side note, of course. But
Steven Spielberg is not willing to go that distance to be accurate for how E.T.'s species would interact with Elliot.
He had to wait until Schindler's List to see Spielberg kill a kid. Yeah.
I thought, Temple of Doom. No, he kills and enslaves kids in Temple of Doom.
Wow.
Or is that Lucas's influence?
No, he's fine with enslaving children.
All right.
You're saying E.T. essentially enslaves Elliot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But anyways.
But anyway, let's talk about the plot, I guess, a little bit. I like the plot of this movie. I think it's an unexpected arc, especially going in. You feel like it's going to be this whole weird getting to know you have this like whole weird getting to know the alien thing, and then it takes this like sharp left turn when the government gets involved, and they just like bug tent the house. Have like, by the way,
quarantine.
What the fuck is the point of a tunnel going into the house if it ends in a completely open van? That's another little plot hole. That's obviously this isn't sealed off
They didn't
by
think
any
it
means.
through.
Because the meth they're cooking doesn't,
They're still wearing suits, although not the doctors. It doesn't matter.
But yeah, no, I like E.T. I think I'm going to give it full credit for the plot. I don't know about you guys, but
I think they do a good job of setting up the family, and in a very actually short span of time, they differentiate all the members of the family and make it feel like a real situation where the father's gone and the mother is working to take care of 3 kids, and you feel very actually does a very good job of making, especially from the angles they shoot at, making E.T.'s species very sympathetic right away. And you're kind of seeing it from their point of view too, the angle they're doing it
A little bit.
but like the glowing heart thing there, like it works. But then you have Elliot's family, which even if you find him an annoying kid, is still, I think they develop the family well. And yeah, the plot progresses pretty quickly and turns dark when it needs to, and has a very famous payoff at the end, which I think is a classic for a reason.
So it doesn't mean 3 for
I
you?
think I'm going to give it a 3.
It's weird because, like, I don't necessarily have the nostalgic attachment to it, even though I was saying to you guys that, like, in theory, I should. Like, this is right in the heart of when I was growing up, and I've seen E.T. I have a fucking, on camera here, I've got the VHS of it. I watched it a bunch of times. It just hasn't been in a while. It's like, yes, I agree it's a good film, but I don't know if I'm going to give it full credit. Like, it's fine. Fine to good. And a lot of it probably will go to style, I guess I'll say, like, because, it's Spielberg, so if nothing else, can't fault it on that. And I do agree, like, they do, it sets up everything you need to know early enough. It doesn't overdraw it, but I think maybe in the middle it sort of lags to me, like, to like a nitpicky degree, which may make me knock a point off of it.
Ask you, where narratively does it falter?
Like, I would say, like, the frog thing, like, I get why it's there, like, when they're establishing a connection, like, I understand why they do all the plot beats that they do, but I just don't know if it's enough for me.
they don't all work for you.
Yeah, like, to a degree. And a bit of it also will go to antagonists, so when that comes up, I'll speak a bit more about that. But just, like, a very strong 2 I'm looking at, but I don't know if it's enough over the line, although I don't begrudge a 3 at all, because I do think it's a well-done, like, storyline overall. So...
All right, as for a movie that came out before all of you were born that I actually did see in the theater that summer, a summer that did include Wrath of Khan, like I said, Firefox, Poltergeist, which debating on whether Tobe Hooper or Spielberg directed how much of that.
Spielberg.
Yeah. E.T. and John Carpenter's The Thing. Wrath of Khan and The Thing being 2 of my favorite movies. I do have a nostalgia to this. And I'm watching the beginning of it and I'm enjoying it. And I'm wondering why I don't watch this more. And I agree with Scott with the frogs. I understand why it's there. I do understand why it's there. It was amusing, but
yeah, I'm just saying there's a moment or two like that as well.
But the ending, and I understand why the whole thing with the government and so forth, but it started losing me there. I mean, I understand why it was there narratively. But all of a sudden I found the movie grating in a way I didn't feel it before. But as soon as they got away from the government goons and it was kids on bikes again, I found myself enjoying the film once again.
Well, also remember that the 80s, in film specifically, whether you're doing Ghostbusters or this, the government is the villain, and it doesn't even need an explanation of why they're the villain.
It's just like default.
Yeah.
Here's what I like, and actually I want to have a discussion about this. I mean, I'm sorry, go on if you want to.
No.
Here's
feel
what
free to cut me off.
Here's what I like about the Here's what I like about the government in this, though, is they are kind of the villain, but also this main face of the government is sympathetic to like E.T. and says that he's been waiting his whole life to see something like this, and like so you get this.
Yeah, I'll get to that line in dialogue.
You get this like faceless government, and then you have a guy here that's like a really interesting kind of diversion from that. He uses the government to try and find the thing that he's really interested in, but at the end of the day, he really wants to help E.T. or help this extraterrestrial. He doesn't want to kill it. Of course, he wants to like study it if he can, but he realizes that being on Earth is killing this thing. So he kind of somewhat assists in getting away. Although I think. I don't think he does anything. Was
he interesting? Because now that you bring that up, I mean, this might go to two different things, dialogue and antagonist, but that kind of seemed like, because, I mean, I know Spielberg purposely shot this to give you the point of view of E.T., to give you the point of view of the kids, which was smart, but I do think that when you pull him out, I don't feel like he was... I wanted him to be more interesting than I found him, because I mean, this is kind of I don't know, that line was a little jarring to me. Like, I've always wanted this when I was a kid. It's just like, but there was nothing to me that led up to that. So I'm with Scott. I'm giving it a strong 2, but I am giving it a 2.
Yeah, I'll stick with a strong 2. Like, it's just not quite enough, although I can see it either way. But to me personally, and like I said, I'll expand a bit more in a question or two, like you just brought up as well. All right, so anyway, let's move on to themes, which will be me. And yeah, I think it's classic sort of like friendship building between, if not children and themselves. But I think there are 2 like strong threads here. One, Elliot's relationship to his brother Michael and sister Gertie, and like the family situation there, and how they're all dealing with it. Like and what they're living in, and then of course like a mystical, like supernatural, if you will, alien element indeed comes down, and like he forms a friendship with a creature / being that isn't human, but they become psychically linked. So therefore, it's sort of like the emotionality of it there is very the anchor is very strong. So I think like that's handled pretty well. Yeah, it's like sort of like you might say like timeless classic, like coming of age kind of tale. But again, with that bent to it. But I think it's not sappy in any way, at least to me, even though maybe a different version of me might say it would be. But I think it's handled deftly enough that it doesn't feel overbearing, and all that stuff like comes to a head. And yeah, like the government agencies are always like inevitably, or at least were at this era, like the de facto villain. But it is a subversion on that, like you said, with Agent whatever his name is, Agent Key Crotch. I'm gonna say, right. But like it all works very well, so it's enough for me for a pretty damn solid 1. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that just the I guess the themes of like the familial bonds and the bonds of friendship that he forms with E.T. are pretty big. I feel like there's like also this don't trust the government type of thing there too, or like the government will just meddle. Like
but that undercurrent, like I said, it's kind of always been the case.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah, I agree.
So I mean, the thing is, I find the themes in this are fine, but I don't find them particularly strong. I'm not sure if I'm going to give it a 1 or not.
Okay,
but what do you think, Ian?
I'm going to build off of what you said, Scott, specifically the coming of age angle to this. When he initially meets the alien, which is not named E.T., I don't know why it takes up that moniker, but regardless.
What's it named?
Eventually they do name it that.
Yeah, but E.T., I know, it's extra-terrestrial. Like, I don't understand why, like, it's, nonetheless.
It's a shorthand nickname for them to easily communicate.
It goes by E.T. because they were like, oh, it's an extraterrestrial E.T., and then, yeah.
I'm just saying that, like, if I keep calling you human, and you're like, human, want to go? And I'm like...
No, I'd be like, call me HM.
All right.
But what does he show the alien? He shows him Star Wars figurines, which, of course, product placement is a huge issue in this, but regardless. But he shows him the small life that he has at that moment.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a world particularly what if you met an extraterrestrial, what would you explain to him nowadays? Like, I would like, oh, here's how the governments of the no, Elliot is a very small world right now of his childhood, and he eventually grows throughout this entire thing and becomes part of not even a great world and an intergalactic world at this point, and I think that really does show he does have that growth throughout it. and spurred on by meeting a strange extraterrestrial that can crane its neck in weird ways, and yeah.
Building on what you said, and I don't really have much more to add, but I loved the family dynamic. I mean, this is the parts of the film I enjoyed most. And I loved what you said about Elliot's got this small world. And yes, it is product placement a go-go, but, I mean, but he does have this small world and he does share it with them. And that goes to what Gertie does, because immediately she plays dress up with him. She twigs to the fact that he's learning, you know,
she's the one who teaches him to speak, in fact.
Yeah, she said that. I taught him to speak. And then I love it when, like, he turns around, you know, saying, I think it's ET, whatever, he's still in dress up mode.
Still in drag, you could say.
He's still in drag. I loved, basically the government, the whole government arc and the frog thing, you know, took me out. I really wish they had kept I really wish they had kept this a small world and kind of made it and kind of kept the parent, the dynamic, because their mom was kind of goofy anyway, but
she was also really tragic in a lot of things too.
She was doing the best she
amazingly
can.
tragic. I mean, you know, it's as
When she says, like, he doesn't even like Mexico right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, that's like what the distant father, like left her. I mean, it's awful.
I mean, I like the fact that first Mike does something that's inaudible. He's like, you know, whatever. And then she leaves and he's like, why the hell did you just do that? I mean, yeah, their dynamic was really believable. His mom, it was an extremely sympathetic character. She was goofy. I really loved all the family dynamic. I loved the interaction with Mike and with Mike's friends and everything. And that's what really drew me to the film. And those other things kind of took me out of it. I understand why they were there. But they stood out because this was a smaller world, but it was such a rich world.
Yeah.
And that's what, and that's, then that's, I just want to explain to you that I understand why it was there narratively, but I'm going to explain to you that everything else was so good and why that took me out.
Okay.
All right. So what do you make of all that, Steve-O?
Yeah, I'm probably going to give it a 1.
Okay.
I don't have anything much else to say.
I think I'm just saying it's stronger than not at the end of the day. So that's my final argument / thought on themes.
The one I took away from plot is really what is reinforcing
Going
this.
into themes.
That is fair. So, Chris, why don't you... Steve-O, why don't you tell us about the antagonist?
I mean, I guess your asshole friends who left you at the bar at the end of the night when you all
They forgot you?
left.
Who's bringing E.T. home? Oh, I thought it was you.
No, like I guess the government to some extent is an antagonist.
Well, that's what the movie wants you to
there's
think,
no
right?
like real clear antagonist in this movie.
Elliot's father.
Yeah,
Absentee parents.
Elliot's father.
Well, he had a good mom.
I won't even give him that much credit. But no, it's. I don't know. I was trying to think of this when I got antagonist. I was like, shit. What the fuck am I going to say about antagonist? Like, there's nothing great in terms of antagonism in this film, other than like the E.T.'s own body slowly killing him, I guess.
Biology.
Ooh, that's always the great antagonist,
right?
everyone.
The Earth's atmosphere murdering the protagonist is the antagonist.
Well, he was like, you know, in that under that little stream that was under the roadway and everything, you know.
Well,
Yeah, there's a lot of
He
pollution
should have done what every other alien in every other film coming out nowadays is trying to do, and terraform the planet.
Yeah. I think they maybe were trying to do that. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I welcome it at this point.
I welcome our
They're
ET
certainly
overlords.
they can't do worse than us.
Yeah, I mean, like, I agree. Like, it's a tricky one. I slotted in 0, like, initially here. Because, again, the film wants you to think, at least in the latter, let's say, third or half even, that it's, you know, the government scientists, whatever. Like,
Right.
but they're not, like, necessarily, like, evil per se. Like, of course, like, they want to study the alien, and they don't know how to deal with it. Like, they're just doing their experiments as they would do otherwise, as directed. So, like... Yeah, like, they're not, like, trying to actively, like, hunt it down, or at least in that sense, in the sense of, like, that you normally think of, like, we gotta go kill the alien, and, you know, it's E.T. himself's not causing trouble.
Right.
He's not malicious in any sense. So this might be a default one. Like again, as you guys said, while that government shit is part of the plot, it's not like they're the be-all, end-all villain, like the card-carrying villain. And in fact, as you said, Steve-O, it's almost a subversion where the main agent assists Elliot and E.T. escaping, and so he can go back to his home world, planet, etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how I'm come down on it. So what do you guys?
Did you say a default 1 or
Default 0.
Okay.
Oh, you did say default 1, but
I'm sorry, I meant 0, yes.
I'm going to agree with the default 0 on this, especially the points you guys made.
I wrote down 0 in my score here. So.
No, the points you guys made and earlier on in the podcast as well are very good. I have to agree with it.
No.
0.
Same thing, Chris?
Mhm.
All right, E. Well, tell us about the protagonists. Or protagonist.
I guess the alien could count as the protagonist.
I mean,
here.
it's Elliot and E.T., I would say,
Yeah.
but...
I mean, you guys said a lot about it already. I mean, like,
Yeah.
they're good characters. Their friendship is developed throughout. And, yeah, I mean, like, you're rooting for them at the end to see them. Especially, I don't know if it's cheap necessarily to have them both, like, dying towards the end or whatever, but, like, it upped the stakes, and that's what's necessary for a good film, and there's a very much a pressure at the end for their escape, so I'm going to give it a 1.
I would say it can be cheap, but I don't think it was in this instance, right? I guess that's what I want to say to you in regards to that specifically.
It could be forced sentimentality,
exactly.
but it also was a impetus for him to have to leave.
It was natural, I think, came out of the plot. So yeah, like, I always cut it up like it's Elliot and E.T. to me, right? It's like their bond, their friendship. He's the one, Elliot finds him and, like, shows, like, eventually, like, brings his brother and sister in like, the secret, whatever, and they help him, and then they're friends. But yeah, I mean, it's their, like, again, like, their psychic, like, imprinting link. And I always thought that was pretty organic, like, believable enough to the extent that it involves an alien.
Well, it also kind of explains how E.T. can acclimate and understand in a way, and that they understand
it's like
each
a two-way
other.
street.
Yeah, and that he knows, the coffee can and the blade from the saw and all that stuff. It's just like even though he doesn't understand, he knows what he needs. I mean, that psychic link does serve a purpose.
Yeah.
Whether or not they needed to go with both of them dying, I'll leave that up. But I understand why it was there. It's a natural progression because of this link. And I agree. I'm giving him one or both of them a strong 1.
I think it's both. I think it's sort of a buddy film, and it's their friendship. That's the core center focus, and I think it's well done.
That's going to be... I'm going to give him a 1 as well, but it was interesting. Like, I was talking to a friend of mine at work today about how we were going to review E.T., and he has a 7-year-old daughter, and he was saying that he watched it with her recently. And I think this, like... Well, bear with me for a second, because I think this will play into the protagonist, because... He said that when they were watching it, and that death scene where the two of them are, like, on the verge of death, he asked her if she was all right. She was like, no, I think they're going to make it. Like, I'm fine. I think they're going to make it. And then at the end, when their, like, chemistry and their bond pays off, and, they're saying goodbye to each other, he's like, that's when she, like, fucking lost it. And, like, just... Sure. I was like, okay, this is really sad now.
But it's effective.
And, like, so, like, it seems like not only do you have a sense of, like, kind of what's happening in the movie, no matter what age you are. And, like, I try to, like, especially for movies like this, I try to put myself in the shoes a little bit of, like, somebody who's much younger, like, seeing this type of thing for the first time, because, like, you've seen movies that play off of the tropes of E.T. so many times at this point that, like, it's old hat, but, like, imagine seeing this for the first time.
Sure, when it was fresh, or
looking at the surprises and, like, trying to see stuff like that. And I think that's just an interesting story that, like, talks about, like, the chemistry between the two protagonists. And I think that, honestly, they're both really good. I think as a child actor, I think the kid Elliot, whoever played him, did a really great job carrying the emotional burden of this fucking movie, basically by himself. And then E.T., just the amount of work that Spielberg and the character, the effects designer and everybody put into this. I mean, the sound effects that go into E.T. and the voice and all that stuff. Like, I feel like there's a lot of attention paid to the small details, and that's why you can identify with E.T. a thing that James Cameron was trying to do in Avatar and did very poorly.
Failed.
So like
The opposite of E.T.
yeah,
But
like
they
you know,
succeeded in Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah, I mean when it's
Yeah.
pulled off well, it's gonna be effective. So.
I mean, I know. Earlier, I was kind of trolling you guys in a way because, like, the elder who's seen half this shit in the theaters. But to Steve-O's point, being 12 in the theater and watching this with my sister being 8 at the time, being kids and seeing this for the first time, not having the hindsight of like how many years of narrative, I can say that it really, you did identify a lot with the, you did as a kid identify with these characters. But what's interesting was, and we saw this multiple times in the theater, and the only time I didn't cry was when I went to see it with my cousins in California, and I tried to keep a step up.
trying to be cool.
Yeah, but everybody in the theater cried. I mean, the thing is, that does show the richness of the characters, and I'll speak more on this when I get to, or whoever's next to get to supplementary characters, secondary characters. But Steve-O, to your point, I mean, this is something that, like you said, when you get to that ending and you get to the impact that of being able to put yourself into there as a kid, even as an adult, it's very, 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 very strong. The ending's very strong.
All right, so one's all around. So you are correct, Chris. It is on to you for secondary.
Okay, and I'm going to start with the ending because the thing I loved about the ending of this film is that he didn't just affect Elliot. He affected his brother and his sister, his mom, even the dog, and even his the 4 friends. See, and this is what I'm going to come back to about the Peter Coyote is like
the biker gang.
I got more of a because you got a more of a connection between Mike's friends that because their closeness with Mike, and as much as they give each other shit, you understand that these people are close to their family. Just the familiarity, like at the beginning. So when you get to the end, I got the feeling that it really did affect these kids in a way, that it affected his mother in a way where it was much more personal with Elliot and his siblings. As I said before, I loved, I loved all the secondary characters in this, the government agents, even, crotch keys. I didn't
John
get that.
Crotchkey.
I didn't get that. I didn't.
All right, that's his agent name.
I didn't get that. I didn't feel the pathos, but like I said, even with the family dynamic, with the friendship dynamic, I thought was really rich in this film. I'm giving this an extremely strong one, as with the protagonist and themes.
So, to quote you from the last recording session, I have nothing to add but 2 points.
I love being quoted by you.
So first of all, Drew Barrymore kills it in this. I
Damn
think
it!
that
I was gonna speak about that.
But
you're right.
I just want to
Yeah.
make that one point. But also, I got to bring up the opening scene when the Jock brother is playing D&D. Completely unbelievable.
Immersion broken.
0 for that. But I also like the fact that they had a smoking cigarette
Oh yeah.
I noticed
with
that.
a
yeah.
bunch of
like 16-year-olds,
Yeah.
I guess. They're like high school.
But that really goes to their characters and also the character of the family dynamic, and the mother can't. And kids are smoking around a table. They're young kids here in high school. Shouldn't be doing that, but they are while playing D&D. It's jocks, whatever. But nonetheless, yeah, you're absolutely right. Like a lot of the characters in here worked really well. But specifically for Drew Barrymore, I'm giving it a 1.
I didn't even notice the character smoking a cigarette.
I mean,
It wasn't
oh, you
smoking.
did?
it's on the table. Like,
oh, there was
It was
just
ash-
a
when
they're
smoking
fucking
cigarette.
around,
in the
yeah.
ashtray, yeah.
So maybe it was the mom smoking and she's putting
No,
it
no,
in
no,
the...
it's heavily implied it's one of the kids.
No, it's
or
one of the
a bunch
kids.
them.
Alright.
But no, like I agree with that. Yeah, like so, it's built. It's sort of builds or like goes back to themes a bit. That like you think like the relationship between Elliot and Michael, his older brother, right? It's like, oh, my little brother's like a little nerd, like I don't care about him, like whatever. But as soon as the ET dynamic is introduced, right, then they become like partners. Then they bring Gertie into the little like cadre, and they all serve like a role, and they become a more closely knit family unit because, and even like they sort of emotionally heal a bit with themselves and with their mother, given the situation, like, as we mentioned earlier. So yeah, they all work quite well, and Michael's like friends, like the D&D, like the bike cadre for sure.
So what you're saying, Scott, is that broken homes can be healed by the introduction of an alien.
Of course, yes.
Okay.
Like,
As always.
that might be a theme unto itself.
This is, I think this is one of the like big original, one of the like kids versus the world movies that came out of the 80s. There were so many of them where it's like, don't tell the adults, we just have to fucking deal with this on our own type of thing. And like you saw this trope happen so much, especially in the 80s. And it's basically where like fucking the Coreys came from, and like you know, like it's just a whole bunch of other like big kid like child action in the 80s. But I think that this movie does it really well.
Yeah, man.
Are we on supporting now? I didn't even hear.
Yeah, we are.
Switched over to
We've
that.
We've transitioned very nicely.
I must have
We've
been
been on
writing
for about
something.
10, 15
I know.
minutes.
I must have been writing something down when we switched over. But
No,
You
anyway.
had to pay attention.
Chris mentioned it,
Steve-O.
and then it was on him, and then it flowed right into it.
Yes. So I really love the supporting characters, especially the siblings in this. I think they do a good job, and the biker gang is great. There's this fucking like amazing chase scene at the end where they're all like riding their bikes away on like a BMX course, basically, and the cops are trying, or the government's trying to chase them down with their cars. It's I don't know
It's a good
why.
scene.
I find that to be a lot of like I find that scene like a lot of fun.
Well, the thing I like about that is, and it does because, well, as somebody who grew up around a lot of construction things, even now I was like thinking, Jesus Christ, I could fall into any ditch at any time. But the thing I liked about it also showed the connection, the relationship, because it's just like they didn't ask a lot of details. They just joined him on this thing, and they're like,
Yeah.
okay, let's split
He's like,
up.
all right, meet us over there. They're like, all
We're gonna
right, why
split
not?
up. We're gonna go down this fucking
Is there
hill.
a fucking alien? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, they came together like
I'm
without.
now picturing them in a construction zone. Elliot taking a fall.
Just falls into the foundation of a
the
house.
alien just goes
No.
flying.
E.T. would have saved them. That is a funny image, I guess we'll say. Well, is that one's
It's like goes into an
unfinished.
unfinished basement. Just
It's right to a house,
It's an open-
like a half completed house.
it's actually a crazy story that happened to my cousin one time.
Yes.
Next product placement, Kool-Aid Man. Oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
That's true.
E.T.
But
says,
yeah,
oh,
I think it's ones all around.
Kool-Aid will be right here.
All right. Well, the ones for secondary.
Yeah.
Quite strong ones, in fact. As Chris dies in ET laughter. But so that'll bring me that'll bring me to dialogue.
All right. So you've been jonesing for this and not telling anybody what you were
So
going
like,
to say. So I'm excited.
here's my opening salvo. Aside from E.T. Vohone, does anybody remember any fucking lines? Like, are any of them like impactful to an extent? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm getting at. Yes, they work, but it's all just like what it needs to be. And I say this a lot, but it's not standout to me. So like, that's my opening argument / impression of it. So now you guys take it away. Convince me one way or another.
I feel that it maybe you're criticizing it because it feels very realistic. I feel that this is the dialogue a kid would have when he's trying to explain.
I don't
to an
disagree, I
alien.
guess. Yeah, go on.
Who Lando Calrissian is.
Yes,
Sure.
but this is what a kid would like. If that happened to me when I was growing up, I'd be like, "This is Leonardo and this is Donatello." And,
You're right. I guess, man. Yeah.
And I can't really talk about what the government had to say, but what the family had to say felt very natural.
Okay.
I'm going to take a different tack than you.
All right.
I feel like you have given movies that have well worse dialogue than this a 1 because they're not as highly touted as this. And I think that you're looking at this movie.
Can you think
And
of a movie I've
saying-
done that with? Like specific?
Where's dialogue with
like-
that's more quotable?
Every movie that you have said this dialogue is like workman-like, and then given it a 1 for, which I know you've done several
that's
times.
a fair point. Yeah.
Like, I think that I think maybe you're taking more into account the
Its status.
and
I
I'm
guess.
not saying that this movie is a brilliant dialogue by any means. I think that you're fairly right. It's like decent dialogue. I think it's good. I don't think it's like one of the best movies dialogue wise. I don't think it's number 24 or
24,
whatever
yeah.
on the AFI list. I don't think it's that high for its dialogue. I think it's that high because of the imagination that went into it and the Spielberg style. But I think that it is well good enough to get a 1 on my scale. I mean, I never found it cringy at all, and the fact that this is a mostly child
centric
film, cast, I think that's fairly impressive.
Actually, yeah, that's a very good point.
So I mean, I'm gonna give it full, the full 1 on a dialogue. I think it does a decent job.
I was going to say the only dialogue that took me out again was when we get to the government scenes. But I agree with you guys. It felt very naturalistic. You want to remember lines of dialogue. The penis breath line always stuck me. And then
it's funny because I do remember now you mentioned it.
And then
the mother laughing at that, but trying not to.
Oh, yeah.
Is what really
exactly.
sells it.
And also like the little things, with, Gertie repeating everything and not quite understanding the context, but like backing them up. Yeah, that's part performance, but that's also written in there.
Yeah.
And, and of course, memorable lines is also, I'll be right here. That's another one.
I suppose, yeah.
But again, when you got to the kids, and I loved how they set up Mike's driving at the beginning, and he has to drive this van. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And it's just like the interaction between them. And it's just like, all right, maybe Elliot can be argued like maybe because his dialogue, because he is psychically linked with E.T., there's going to be a different perspective on it. But I really like their banner. I really felt that overall it was very naturalistic. And to me, as far as the dialogue's natural, unlike another podcast we were talking about when we were talking about Dark Phoenix, how like it's like face palming. You're like, oh my God, you really wrote that? This is like screenplay writing 101. No, this is natural dialogue.
It's really true.
All right, no, you guys got me. Like the point that I often will give credit for. Yeah, you're right. It is naturalistic, organic. It's believable, and that's totally fine. So I was sort of like not hating on it, but like again, that was my original angle. But I do agree. You guys convinced me. I'll give it a fairly solid to a strong 1 for dialogue for all those reasons.
Can I just... I don't know where I would put this otherwise, but
hit me.
I love it when Elliot basically killed those 2 guys by pulling out all the fucking pins in the van, and then they got up.
Nah, I think
I was like,
funny.
come on. You're going like 30 miles an hour. You're just like swiping them off the side of your fucking
survived.
van.
They were in bubbles.
They're in bubbles.
Oh, they're in bubbles. That's fine.
And in counter suits.
Yeah, the suits are super protective of the road.
The
You smash your
hazmat
face
suits.
into it.
Hey,
For
they're all ready to paint
maybe that is a bit of style because we're about to get to that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a funny point, I suppose.
It kind of goes to style.
Well, why don't you talk about style? Because it is on you.
All right. I love the style of this movie. I got a couple things that I want to bring up, nitpicky wise.
Okay.
I don't remember. Were the flashlights in the beginning of this? Were those? Those were in the original, right? That wasn't like something that was swapped out, a la the walkie-talkies.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was always like that.
So they had no beam of light coming out of them. They were just like a yellow circle on the flashlight. Did anybody else notice that?
No, man, that's
It
super
bugged
nitpicky.
It bugged
Holy
the
shit.
out of
I
me.
mean, Steven Spielberg is a known hack. So.
It bugged me like crazy, especially because it was a Spielberg movie. I was like, this seems like something you
I didn't notice that at all, but
like,
sure, I believe you.
It was just like, it seemed like it was a prop with like a piece of yellow cardboard taped to the end of it.
Maybe they're saving some budget there.
Otherwise, E.T., great. It's amazing that you can make this really kind of seemingly cheap animatronic prop have so much life and
personality
to it.
Sometimes it was a puppet too. I mean, sometimes there was somebody in it too.
Yeah, and but regardless, it's just there's so much to E.T. to the alien that comes right out of the screen. You know, like you get this entire sense of personality from that, and that could have gone wrong really easily, I think. And also everything else about this movie was great, style-wise.
So you're going around screen to screen trying to get parts for your spaceship, and a government guy's coming out, and theoretically you can like float up. It's the worst game of all time. Well, maybe not the worst, but it's notoriously known as. But that's E.T., the video game. This is a Spielberg at his highest quality when it comes to family-friendly films. Although perhaps the Indiana Jones ones can be
Somewhat
considered
lumped
that.
in.
But I don't know, like there's a reason. I think if another director made this movie, it wouldn't be on the AFI 100.
I can sort of see
100%.
that.
And it jumped 76 spots because it was Spielberg and like right in his ballpark, right? Like right in his alley.
Sure.
But it deserves it because the attention to detail, aside from I guess the flashlights, but the use of it, the animatronics, the puppets, it worked really well.
Yeah.
No, I agree. So I'm going to give you a line. I'm going to give style one, obviously, because, yeah, it's like, I mean, the famous thing, like the bike thing and all that, but this is for you, E, specifically, and all of us.
Mhm.
Half of Spielberg's millions should indeed go to John Williams.
Yes.
And this movie, like, proves that. Like, I know the flashlight thing, not, but there were scenes I'm like, if the score was removed from the scene, like, it would be like, there just wouldn't be as impactful at all.
Trash.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, like, I mean, I have to give a huge credit on that front. And yes, of course, otherwise he shot a good movie. He still knows, or at least did know how to direct back in 82. So, yeah.
Ooh. Shots
Those are
fired.
my
Lost
big
a step, Spielberg.
Those
Get
are
on
my
your
big
fucking
points,
game,
But
dude.
I just want to like make that as a humorous reference, but I still think it's super effective.
I'm sorry, E.T. is no Post or
Yeah,
Bridge of
it's
Spies.
1,000 times
Thank
better
God.
than that. But yeah, that's basically all I have to say about style.
To build
Ready
off
Player One.
to build off the music, one thing that I never noticed before was when they're because I agree with you 100%. Even Spielberg told Jordan Peele, keep Mike Labels because he's going to be your John Williams. But
Nice.
when they're having the Halloween thing and E.T. walks by the Yoda thing,
Yeah.
he Williams integrates the Yoda theme from Empire. It flows seamlessly. It was really great. I also love the credits where they play the theme on the piano. That always got me. I mean, if I can make it through the film without crying, as soon as I heard that piano, it would break my heart. And the other thing, to Steve-O's point, and I'm not going to shit on CGI because it's good, but it's so great. Carlo Rambaldi, who also designed the Xenomorph from the original Alien. Giger designed it. He made it actually work. He
built the actual.
Yeah, he did
Problem.
E.T. And it's just, I'm like looking at it now and I just like, why don't people do practical stuff anymore? I mean, yeah, motion capture is great. And I understand there's certain things you can't do without it. But, to see something practical, it's,
Some movies that do practical
well,
stuff.
I know, but it's not
It's more few and far between.
Yeah.
I think you're saying there.
If this had the Xenomorph in it, it would have been a much different movie.
That's true.
well,
Or if Alien had E.T. instead of the Xenomorph.
Yeah,
That also is true.
I was going to say Elliot, Gertie, Mike, Mom would all be little eggs.
Mm-hmm.
the dinner scene would be much different.
Actually, you made me think of something. I wrote it down as a note when I was watching E.T. So, like, somewhat, like, very superficially, E.T.'s neck somewhat, like, in profile, we'll say, somewhat resembles the chest burster from Alien.
A little
That's all I'm gonna
little
say.
bit.
That's how they reproduce.
He does like the chest burster is like a mini E.T. But that's all. So I'm fairly sure that means we're all giving style of one.
We
a pretty
started.
strong one.
We got a Roomba and we tried it out for the first time, and it's like bumping into things, and I just keep thinking of ET, like when he
When he's drunk.
the whole time.
Yeah.
Got a drunk Roomba?
Very nice. All right, sirs. So we're finally on to your recommendation. The WE. Do you recommend E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial?
It's cute. It holds up.
It's cute.
But that's the thing is, I think its selling point is that it's a heartwarming film and still holds up after all this time. And so like if you haven't seen it, I think it's worth a watch.
What the fuck?
Sure.
I mean, it's weird because if you haven't seen it and you're going back, I think you made this point earlier that you'd be like, oh, a lot of stuff's cliched in this.
Yeah.
But it's not.
But wasn't,
really, because this is what made
Exactly.
all.
Yeah, I was going to say it wasn't at the time.
Created all the cliches. Yeah.
I'm going to recommend it. As I said, out of that summer, a lot of great films came out, and I haven't seen this film in such a long time. And I was watching it last night and wondering why I didn't. It is definitely. I'm glad we reviewed it because I wasn't sure how I was going to take it. I was, in a weird way, I was kind of not looking forward to this. I don't know why. I just was kind of like, all right.
More reluctant at the outset. Sure.
Yeah, but I'm like watching it. I'm like, there is such a richness to it. In this, I think I love what you said before about this small world. I mean, it's a very complete, real world, and I highly recommend this movie.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, you?
Yeah, let me. I because I want to let you do the cap off.
Fair enough.
But I definitely recommend it. I think it's a great movie to watch. A little tidbit that I found out actually yesterday was that this movie released on June 11th in 82, and we're going to be releasing this episode on June 12th. So, pretty close. Just a little
ET release
side
date.
note. Yeah.
37 years later.
But yeah, it's a really good flick. I highly suggest watching it, or, you know, if you're our age and you have children, show it to your kids, because it's a better movie if you watch it as a kid, I think. But it still holds up really well. It's well done, and even if you can tap into your inner child a little bit, even give it a
Still get something
look.
from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, so I don't know if it should be 24, but certainly it should be on the AFI list, like 100%. It definitely is impactful and influential, and like a lot of the things that, again, that also were in that same vein, and even like you said, the Stranger Things logline. Yeah, it's 100% true, and yeah, it still holds up well enough. Like I said, like I was sort of like cynically like heartless Thurlow being like, whatever, fuck this movie. We're like, no, it's good. It still stands and it still works, and we're all giving it a pretty strong score. And yeah, I still think it is worth it. And like I said, yeah, probably if you have a kid, it's going to be a better, like, it's helpful to watch it in a sense, and like you can both get something out of it and enjoy it and have a sense of wonder about it in a way. So yeah, I think that's it. Any final thoughts before I hand out the scores, my friends? Phone home?
I want to just say, I meant to say this during the recommendation, is I haven't seen this movie in God knows how long.
I was in the same boat.
But as I was watching it, like memories of how, like, it's almost like they were personal memories of me. Like, there's one where he's going into the fish tank with the cloth,
And the shark eats the fish.
Like, it's almost like that happened to me in a sense. But I'm like, no, it's from the movie, but this is well of nostalgia, which doesn't affect me all that often, actually hit me with this.
Got you. So fair enough.
Yeah, so watch it with your kids, and hopefully they'll have that well of nostalgia when they're bitter in their 30s.
It's really funny because it's like, I'm like, at the time and even now, I was like sitting there going, at the time I was going, oh, I have that toy. Last night when I was watching, I'm like, oh, I had the shark. Oh, I see the TIE fighter there. I had like, you know, it's just, it really did. The nostalgia hit me in a lot of different ways. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's all. I give credit on that front as well. All right. So I shall hand it out. So here we go. Ian and Steve-O, you have given it 9s, and you and I, Chris, gave it an 8, which is pretty strong, and an 8.5 overall, which, yeah, damn solid. It's up there. Still stands, still one of Spielberg's, like I said, like, I can hate on him now if I want to, but at the time, at the height of his abilities, it's one of the best films that he created. And yeah, it's good. It's a good family film.
Well, I mean, it's so funny because you see, you see what passion he had as a young filmmaker and what passion he had, I guess, through the 90s. And I don't know, there's somewhere in after we got past the 2000s that.
Sure.
You know, I'm just saying, but you can see the passion in this film.
He's not going to rest until Tom Hanks plays every single American.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks should play E.T. in their fucking inevitable reboot, I suppose. But until that happens, I think that'll do it for tonight. As Chris dies, I, of course, have been your government agent, Scott Thurlow, here with my friends, Stephen Amosi.
Have a good night.
Jonathan Ian Manzer.
Good night.
And Chris Morgan.
Have a Coke and a smile.
And I'm going to go E.T. drink beer. Good night.
Editing and engineering by Christopher Morgan. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates.